Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Writing Life. I'm Steve Long. And my guest today is Heather Sharfeddin.
Sharfeddin.
Yeah, should have practiced more. And I met Heather at the William Stafford poetry reading and was just so taken with your work. You got up at some point and read, and then I thought, I'm going to capture this person. So thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
You are adjunct professor of creative writing, is that right?
Creative writing. Yeah.
At Linfield.
Yes.
But I think you teach at other venues as well.
I do. I do community classes, but
Yeah.
I previously taught at University of Arkansas, so I'm up here now at Linfield.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do community classes through both Linfield and through the Hill County Arts Commission,
Okay.
and also other arts alliances like River Pretty in Tecumseh, Missouri. So I travel around a little bit.
I was going to say, so when you do that here, how can we be advised of that?
Oh, actually, I think they cover it in the News Register.
Okay.
And it's also on the Linfield Continuing Education, online and continuing education website. If you check, they have community classes, and they have a whole variety of them. It's not just creative writing, they have winemaking, all kinds of
Sure.
really interesting classes. So.
Now, I know you've got a website. Would it be on there as well, or should we just
Yeah,
check?
it would be on my website, sharfeddin.com.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. I did a little research. I went to the library and looked at your books and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that impressed me, not only the praise that you've gotten, but I was at a lecture one time, and John Lescois, if you know, his name, obviously French, it looks like Lescoart, but he pronounces it Lescois. The most helpful bit of advice that he gave, that was, for me anyway, he said, put your characters on the page and have them do something. Well, you sure do that.
Oh, thank you.
You really hit the ground running.
Thank you.
And would I be correct in saying that your work is character driven?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next thing I want to pursue then, you've got some characters who I suspect are nothing like you.
Oh, absolutely
Well,
not.
so the auctioneer,
Herschel Swift, yeah.
Yeah, so how in the world did you come up with this fellow?
Well, it's interesting because my first job I ever had in high school, and my most fun job I ever had, was working at a consignment auction every Tuesday night.
Really?
And I met a lot of really interesting characters there. And
Yeah.
so some of those characters swim around in my head. And this particular, I don't know where Herschel Swift exactly originated from, but he came from that sort of
That experience.
Yeah, that experience, and he might have been a composite of multiple characters that I met there.
Yeah.
So, and of course, then I let my imagination run wild and.
And then so that you sort of had a background, at least you knew about it. You have other occupations that, did you research these things, or how do you build a character?
Oh, well, I think that it is important to research. I also think that you build on things that you know deeply.
Sure.
So I grew up in the cattle ranching arena, and so when I wrote Black Belly, which was my first book, it's about black belly. Well, it's not about black belly sheep, but they're sort of the backdrop.
Right.
And I had a small band of black belly sheep while I was writing it because it gave me that firsthand knowledge of them. So I think it's important to draw on experiences that you have, and they may be really minor experiences. The motel owner in my third novel,
Right.
I was a motel maid the summer that I graduated from high school.
Okay.
And then I went on to be a desk clerk and a night auditor while I went to college, and so I got sort of that whole world. And having an occupation to tie to your character, I think, for me personally, really helps kind of bring them alive, give them something to do, and then you can add whatever you want to that. But
Right.
they're real people with real lives.
Yeah. You know who I think does that so well, and it's so central to his work, is Dick Francis. This is in no way derogatory, but I have said Dick Francis's novels are the same person change their name and change their occupation.
Their
It's
occupation, yeah.
But it's so fun to read.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's my take on it. But you know, the cliche is write what you know, and certainly that's
yeah,
what you've
I
done.
think that there's a lot of value in that. I think that, well, and we all have experiences that are very diverse, and you know, by the time you get to 50 or 40 or 30, you have a lot of experience that counts, and so use it.
Sure. Somebody talked about exposing too much, or you know, is this autobiographical? And I remember the answer was, you don't have to have killed somebody to write a murder mystery.
Right.
So if you have, and this is mixing metaphors, but if you want to write about a death, maybe you don't, maybe that's not part of your experience, but maybe you lost a pet. So what is similar? What can you draw on and say, oh, well, now if I amplify this feeling or this fear, whatever emotion you're going for, you do have something to draw on, and then you just
Right.
work on that.
Well, and I do think that as writers, we gravitate to specific topics and specific emotional backdrops. And so I think some of it is a little bit driven from our internal psyche, and that we don't have a lot of control over that part of it, what we like, what we
Sure.
gravitate to as readers and also gravitate to as writers. But you're right, you don't have to, you know, I mean, you can write about what you know, but there's a certain point at which you don't know. And you have to be able to dive in, and you just use common sense, I think, of how do people behave when they're bereaved? How do people behave when they are shifty and they're, you know, I mean, we all see it every day in dramas or in the news, so we have a lot to draw on.
I had a teacher who said one of the key elements when you're building character is what she called the pathological maneuver. And I think kind of that's what you're saying, is when the pressure's on your character, where do they go? Are they shifty? Or do they run away? What's their MO?
Right. Well, and understanding your character deeply when you're writing helps put them down on the page correctly. Otherwise, they will sort of fall flat. I make my writing students actually interview their characters
Okay.
and ask them questions about the situation that they're in and how they feel about people and what their dreams are. And it's an absolutely ridiculous exercise to go through. You feel completely stupid doing it, but there's so much value
Oh, yeah.
in understanding that, and the point at which the character begins to speak for themselves and the person doesn't have to stop and think about how the character would respond. Once they start writing, just rapidly writing, then I know that they have kind of reached that point.
You hear time and again an author will say, well, the character took over. I didn't know that he was the perpetrator, or I didn't know he wanted to do that. And
Or
then
he has a huge
Yeah.
personality that suddenly has taken over my story.
Sure.
Yeah.
In fact, I can't remember the name of the story, but the story was about the character and the writer and how they talked to each other,
Oh.
influenced each other, and went back
Yeah.
and forth. And who's in charge here? Sometimes I think.
I've had that struggle with characters before, and I've had to actually say, you get your own book, you know, you have to behave by my rules on this book. And, you know, then moved on to actually write a book about that character.
I love this because I write character-driven novels. That's what you do, and I wondered about your process for developing. So, do you learn the character? Do you think you learn the character as you go, or is the preliminary work is you work on the character before you ever start to write the book? No. Okay.
No, mine. I start with brushstrokes. I think of them as just postcards of the character, and as I go, I learn more and more about the character. I will get to a point in a novel where I don't know enough, in which case I'll interview the character and really get to know them. But I'm fond of putting two people into a situation that just seems impossible and starting there and just sort of taking it from there and letting it be an organic experience. If I don't have fun experiencing it or letting it unfold, then I don't think my reader's going to have fun reading it.
But when you put them in that situation, I think I've heard that described as the crucible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you,
Just, yeah, set up a situation, an interesting situation, and go from there. You know, I love setting. Setting is important to me. And so I often will start with an unusual situation between two characters in a really interesting setting, and then use the setting as part of the, as a character. So have them, have it sort of impose itself on the characters.
do you make an effort to pick your characters from sort of opposite ends of a spectrum? Or in my little bit of reading of your work, it seems like maybe they're naturally like that. They're naturally at odds. But do you do that? Is that subtle?
I don't think I do that intentionally.
Really?
I mean, I guess to some degree I must, because if you have two characters that agree, then you don't really have
What fun
much.
is that?
Yeah, exactly. You don't have a
Yeah.
lot to work with. But I don't think about it that, you know, that consciously, I guess.
You're quite successful. You have several books out, and you know, we're going to run out of time here, so I want to get to your poem.
Okay.
But I was just going to say, I was at some kind of a seminar or something where we were reading our work, and there was a young lady who read about her family. Well, she had created a family, and everything was so rosy that there was nothing happened. Everybody liked everybody. You know, the food was good.
It's not good fiction.
Yeah. You may have heard this. I've heard a teacher say, get your characters up a tree and then throw rocks at them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be mean to your characters to some degree. You know, you have to. I think you have to be a little bit sadistic.
Yeah. Well, Heather, let me have you read your poem. I
Okay.
want to get that. It's so lovely. And
Well, this poem. So this was the poem I read at the William Stafford Memorial,
yeah.
and it was a poem that I wrote when my husband and I were separated. It's a happy ending. We're together, but he's from Libya, and so it's called Home Is, and it's an exploration of this idea of what is home. I would keep the house and you would move home to that place of your dreams. Sandy beaches white, kissing the sapphire sea, where the Libyan dog was cut down by his own. I planted your gardens as if you were here, beets, snow peas, squash, even the tomatoes I can't stand. The neighbor came by with a gift from you, a lawnmower with an electric start, and a florist too, who sends their ex pink lilies. Your clothes hung neatly in the closet, your tools lined the garden shed. All of your life that didn't fit in that 20 by 32-inch suitcase. I touched your shirts, pressed my face to your pillow. I walked away and returned puzzled, a widow without a death. When I heard they bombed the airport, ruined it completely, I thought of our life together, demolished. When the blueberries ripened, I picked them to shrivel in the fridge, waiting for you. When the cherries came on, I got out your ladder to reach the highest boughs, but didn't. When the figs turned purple, I left them to rot. Home is not where the heart is. Home is home, where the flag of your childhood flutters bright, calling to you. Home is a pull deeper than us.
I loved it the first time, and I love it again. That's
Thank
wonderful.
you. It's a hard one to read, actually.
It is. I kind of put you on the spot there. Well, it turned out all right.
It did turn out okay.
Yeah, I'm glad. Heather, thank you so much. I want to come to your classes. I think that would be
Great.
terrific.
I'd love to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. And, you know, we'd love to hear from you. If you have a suggestion for a topic or a guest, you can reach me either at my website, stephenwlong.com, or the Writing Life Facebook page. All right? So, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.